Greetings, family. Welcome to the Grand Rising Collective. My name is Kyle Dixon, co-host, educator, and entrepreneur for 20 years. Grand Rising Collective's here is to cultivate greatness in ourselves and our community.
And my name is Kaide Bentley, co-host, educator, and entrepreneur for over 20 plus years. My contribution to Grand Rising Collective is to help cultivate that greatness in ourselves and the community through impactful discussions, seminars, and webinars with my co-host, Kyle Dixon.
Greetings, family. Welcome to another edition of the Grand Rise Collective podcast. This is your host, co-host, as they say, with the most or the mostest, Kyle Dixon, with my podcast partner, Kaide Bentley. Say what's up to the people, Kaide.
What's up to the people? What's up, y'all? How you doing, family? I'm here to join my brother Kyle and our exciting guest that you're about to hear from. Thank you, Kyle. I'm here. Go ahead.
Indeed. So we have a great guest for you all today. A brother, who is doing a lot of great work in the streets, in the political realm, in Washington, D.C. The brother's putting in work behind the scenes, y'all, and that is Mr. Britton Smith. Britton, how you doing, my brother?
Man, I'm amazing, man. I'm doing very well and very blessed and honored to be here with you guys here today.
Thank you.
Indeed. Blessed to have you, man. So family, before we get into it again, with our platform, we've been doing this for quite a while now. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Our episodes, we have previous episodes where we talk about many different things: education, health, like I said, political reform, as we're talking about today. Things dealing with, physicality, dealing with health and wellness, all these different things that we feel that are important in our community, our neighborhoods, and also in our families. So these are things that we want to be able to share with you all in regards to learning better, to do better, to feel better. So again, please share. And of course, we love donations. We can take the kind of jingles, but we prefer the kind that folks. Yes. So please, our Cash App is below. So definitely check us out. All right. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, let's get into it, family. So we have our guest on here, Britton. Britton, man, tell us a little about you, man. I know a little bit about you. We met in Atlanta, good family friend, friend of my brothers and whatnot. But we met in Atlanta at a place called the Gathering Spot. And a lot of people who are doing a lot of community work and are just progressive and innovative things in general meet there. But you as an individual, brother, like you come from Mississippi, and if I'm correct, tell me a little bit about like growing up in Mississippi, because people have a negative slant on Mississippi, myself included. Growing up, I grew up mainly in Tennessee, but Mississippi has this, this overshadow of slavery and just kind of backwards ideology of thinking and living, and people look at it like, oh, y'all behind the times, but give us like an indicator, like just growing up in Mississippi and just your influences.
Absolutely. So I'm a native born Mississippian, born in the big city of Natchez, Mississippi, down at the banks of the Mississippi River. Right. And so of course my family we're several generation Alcornites. So Alcorn State University, and literally our family land sits right at the front gate of Alcorn.
Wow.
So I'm talking about my mom and aunts and cousins and great aunts, like lineage of folks who have, just gone across the street. Jokingly, I said, with me running around on the campus at a young age, and a lot of family who worked there, lived there, a lot of eyes on me, man. So I couldn't go there. I had to go somewhere else.
Wow. And Britton, just that's an HBCU, right?
Absolutely. Alcorn State, oldest land grant institution in the state. So, shout out to Alcorn. They're doing a lot of great work there, and I'm very pleased to work with them on some other projects. But and then of course I matriculated through Piney Woods, which is the only remaining historically Black boarding school left in the country. And of course, people have a notion when they hear boarding schools, because it's not so common in the Black community. Mm-hmm. We think of two things. So you say boarding school, you're either talking about that upper East Coast blue blood, the Connecticut refined, rich kid, snobby thing. And then there's the concept of a reform school. And Piney Woods is neither. Piney Woods is an alternative to a lot of the mainstream things, where a lot of the ills that plague us in the mainstream education system, and it provides just a peaceful environment, another environment that's more conducive to learning. And so I had the pleasure of going to Piney Woods with its rich history, and of course learning and being exposed to that type of institution that was really built on college readiness and college preparedness. So my mother had the foresight, and I had another cousin who attended Piney Woods, and worked wonders in him pursuing so many other things. And he's, as a matter of fact, he's also here in DC.
Okay.
And he's doing amazing work. And of course, like I said, as we talked about in the pre-show, one of those few people that kind of did a lot of blocking and tackling before I even got on the scene. So yeah, they knocked a lot of doors down. So shout out again to my cousin Albert Smith, who just was a trailblazer in his own right. But I had the opportunity to go to Piney Woods, get some great hands-on experience, both in connecting with people from all across the country, all across the world. And so it was a diverse world within the state of Mississippi. So going back to your original question, I also had the pleasure of growing up some of my time in North Mississippi. And for those who don't really know what North Mississippi is, that's the Chicago area.
Okay.
During the Great Migration.
Explain North Mississippi. Is there a difference? Oh man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Chicago, stand up, Shaw City. What's up?
So most of
the Joe.
On my mama, Joe. So
right.
So like most Black folks from Mississippi, during the Great Migration, my grandparents moved up there for the steel mill jobs and the jobs in the industries up there. So of course, Chicago has a whole bunch of second generation, third generation Mississippians and everything. Oh. So I spent a good portion of my life growing up there as well, some formative years there. But in all in all, Mississippi has earned its reputation. So we can make no bones about that. Mississippi earned the stigma it got. It was in the fight. So yeah, it got the black eye. Like it definitely has earned its position in history. At the same time, it affords such a way forward and a clear path forward to correcting a lot of things and a lot of these ills that have been attached to what could possibly be a lot of growth in Mississippi. And of course, just like people who see look at the glass half empty, the glass half full, when I hear about the things that are, historically been wrong with Mississippi, having lived in DC, lived in Virginia, the Chicago area, Northwest Indiana, and all those things, I saw no differences in a lot of things, actually. Like I saw no major stark differences in the overt or covert racism. I saw no major differences in the way I was approached by people with influence, law enforcement. I saw a lot of these same things. And all it just let me know was there's a lot of opportunity in Mississippi in rewriting this story. There's a lot of opportunity in making sure that Black and brown folks, not just across the state of Mississippi, but across the country, understand that there are a lot of good things that come out of Mississippi. It's a lot of, it's the birthplace of a lot of movements. It's the birthplace of a lot of things that are ingrained, not just in the Black culture, but in American culture. So I say a lot of those things with pride. Of course, being a Mississippi, I'm proud to be a Mississippian. I'm proud to be one of the persons that's going to do the work in the next generation of Mississippians to help build Mississippi forward and make a way for future Mississippians and future Southerners and future Black and brown folks all across this country to have opportunities despite whatever ills, whatever problems, whatever setbacks that are positioned in front of them.
Indeed. Word, brother. Yeah, because Mississippi's deep south. You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
about the south, it's like, you deep south. You know what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
right,
Absolutely.
it has its history.
But it's no longer a situation where, and we've seen this now with the advent of cameras on our cell phones. There are a lot of the same things that we thought only happened in Mississippi happening everywhere. And from things happening on the streets of New York to things happening on the in your Clevelands and in your Minnesotas and Floridas, and of course still things happening in Mississippi and Oklahomas, and so there have been, put it like this, you remember the game where like we were little, play tag or whatever, but and everybody would try to get to base, and base was known as the safe place. Like I can't be touched when I'm at base.
Right.
The sad reality is, in America, for Black folks, we haven't found a base yet. There hasn't been a place where we can stay, well, we'll stop and settle here because it's base. We thought we had one in Tulsa. We thought we had one in Rosewood. We thought we had one in so many different Black pockets and Black circles around where we, insulated our communities and everything like that. We thought we had that. And then we saw all the massacres and all the things that have ensued. So again, we're still people looking for a base. And so with that, I think it provides so many opportunities for us to build this united collective group of folks and collective cohort of people like yourself who want to, be vehicles of spreading the word, connect with agents of change, connect with those actors who are doing the work. And I think there is opportunity, there is a place and a space where we can look to build a base for our base.
Preach, preacher. Look at this guy.
Yes, sir. Hey, break out the handkerchief. You know what I'm saying? No, but no, real talk though. That's real talk. No, not just for show. That's real. Like, because I think people, again, even people in the South have a negative stigma of Mississippi. So therefore Mississippi has this, this idea in people's minds. But no, like I said, things are changing. Technology is changing. That people's awareness is changing. No, I appreciate that.
Well, and it's two different things. It's almost like I say two different Mississippis, because again, you have a state like Mississippi which has the most elected Black officials per capita. So there are more Blacks who have positions of power. And the unique thing is, because we live in such homogenous areas, that a lot of the things that we see on the news, or a lot of things that we see, like the unfortunate incidents that happens, of course, that we saw throughout the 60s, and with the Goodman, Schwerner, and Cheney and all those other things, we don't really live in a lot of diverse areas in the state, which is why Piney was experience so unique, because we had kids from Latin America, kids from Ethiopia, Sudan,
all over, like say global too.
All over. And so we had that experience in Mississippi, mixed with some kids from Greenwood, and mixed with some kids from Tupelo, and mixed with kids from Natchez, and kids from Chicago, New York, LA, all on this campus, interacting and sharing a common experience. And the thing that really teaches us is, the more we start to understand what are the common experiences, the better the environment becomes. And so, as you have these two Mississippis, where a lot of Blacks who are elected primarily in the 2nd Congressional District and Jackson metro area, the more they have and understand the common experiences between those who are in the Tupelo Hill country and the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and so many other places and pockets where we don't have a lot of African-American representation, the more we start to see the common experiences, the better not just the political environment, but the social environment. And so again, we're resistant to change in a lot of things, but again, we still wear that moniker of being the most hospitable state. So trying to figure out where that balance is, man. When I figure out the answer, man, I'll come back and let y'all know that I got it.
We're gonna
find you. Right.
We're gonna chase you down. I'm sorry, Kyle. Yeah, anything else?
No, go ahead. No, brother.
All right, so man, you threw a lot out there, Britton. Man, you threw a lot, and Cal, again, I hate to say this, but it bears repeating. An hour is just not enough time. So
I
I'm
know.
trying,
Yeah,
Neil,
man.
trying.
Yeah, family. We trying to compact it to an hour, but we got so many dynamic people on here. It's hard to, which it should be, but that's why we have them on here. We can definitely have it back, but yeah, we digress.
Got a lot of part twos, Britton. Just so you know, we got a lot of part twos, a lot of other guests. So, one of the things I forgot to share before we started, the air, was I represent inner city youth. Right, my organization, 4Ts. You kind of know that background already. So I'm like the voice of the young people of the inner cities. That you gave a lot. So I'm just going to address what stood out to me real quick. And that is when you meant, I didn't know that Mississippi had the most elected black officials. That's news to me. I would think like more, how can I say, inner cities, like the dense populated areas such as New York City, California, Miami, things of that nature would have more of a diverse representation. But in having said that, with Mississippi having the most elected black officials, does that necessarily mean that these representatives that look like us represent us, or represent our black experience, or represent our black voices? Because yeah, I've been in corporate for like over 20 years, and obviously there are not a lot of us in corporate, but I've learned, and it's been a tough thing to have to accept, is that many people that look like us don't necessarily relate to us or have been brainwashed and programmed. So I had to learn that real quick. Just because I see a brother, what have you, I can't be comfortable with him too, because our experiences may not align. So I guess what I'm asking, Britton, is, even though with that law representation of us in these positions, do they necessarily represent our experience? Do they present our experience, or do they speak for us? Do they represent us? And the reason why I'm asking that is and I'm bringing in like current events as well, but this wasn't the main current event I was going to bring in. But you have this guy, Trump, right, who FBI just raided his Mar-a-Lago location with these confidential documentation, right? The fear is, yeah, even though he's going through that, he still has an opportunity to run for president again. Even though we had January 6th, the attack on the Capitol that's never happened before, they still giving this guy, the benefit of the doubt, or had it been us, be a whole different story. So how many of us black elected representatives in Mississippi in particular, since you're there, do you feel represent us, our experience, and speak for us?
One thing I can say, and this me having worked with a lot of folks in the congressional black caucuses and the legislative black caucuses in various states. One of the things that I really love about Mississippi's black elected class, that I say I would love about them, is their authenticity. And they're very authentic people, very, no matter how many years they've been elected and sent down to Jackson, to the Capitol, to do work there, or whether it's their county work or things, they're very authentic. And they keep alive this phrase that I learned in college, from one of my professors, Dr. Stovall. A lot of politicians really do a lot of work in keeping alive the moniker of mama and those. And Dr. Stovall used to use this phrase, mama and those, mama and those. Taking
Shout
care
out
of
Dr. Stovall, man.
Absolutely, man. It's
Dr. Stovall, salute, elder.
absolutely. Dr.
Yeah.
Stovall taught us a lot. When he introduced that, my mother even latched onto that phrase. She loves that, talking about mama and those, being able to take care of mama and those. There are a lot of things that you can do, because again, if you can't come back to mama and those, if you've evolved so much, if you've progressed so much that you can't come back and you can't take care of mama and those, then you have kind of lost your value to the community that you represent. And so one of the things that I can say Mississippi does a good job of by and large, of electing folks that are that keep that at top of mind, that keep community first. We can argue sometimes to their political detriment, sometimes to, it costs the risk of, hey man, you on a fast track, you could be the next chairman of this, you could be the next this, you could be the next this. All I need you to do is not put this in or not look out for this. And we've seen a lot of good legislators say, can't do that. I got to go back home.
Really?
You know, and so, which is another point, another talking point to the question you asked earlier about the stigma and why haven't things changed, whatever. Well, we are so focused on making sure, and a lot of elected officials who are doing good work are so focused on making sure that they're building the community that has helped build them, that they can't focus on fixing all the other ills and all the other problems that have plagued Mississippi at the deeper core to the outside. So, for instance, they're so focused on making sure that their communities have the proper schooling, have the proper that they're solving food desert problems, that they're solving problems with access to resources, with broadband, with simple things that we don't have to worry about in other places, that they can't fix what happened in 1867, that they can't fix how do we make things look good? Because again, the sad reality is, you talking about the state of Mississippi, we just got around in 2021, what is that, 2020, to taking down the state flag, so, which was bearing Confederate symbols. Now, and we'd always argue the difference between symbolic victories and substantive victories. And while that symbol was bearing and wearing deep down on us, there were some substantive things that needed to get done. And if you had to ask me many times over in 2002 or 2010, whatever year, hey man, you want to take this flag down, or do you want to allocate $500,000 to the education system in your school districts? I'm choosing schools
all day.
So again, while that was a beautiful victory and a beautiful symbol, there were some substantive issues that a lot of our legislators in Mississippi were fighting for and have been fighting for years. And I applaud and salute so many others and so many who have been advocating for this space. And it was Mississippi where I got a chance to see not just Black elected officials, but here's another important thing: a Black political society. And the reason why that's important is, we give our kudos and our hats to and tip our hats to Barack Obama, who successfully became the first Black man to ever take the office of president. But then again, you have one thing I do not discredit is Jesse Jackson's run, because although we look at Jesse Jackson's run as, what was he doing out there? Why he just jump out there? And a lot of folks have said that. But what Jesse Jackson's campaign did was give rise to Black campaign consultants, Black campaign directors, Black political directors, Black spaces where we did not know existed. We knew, you're supposed to run for senator, or you can run for Congress, and you can run for this, you can do this, you can be the mayor. But we didn't know what it's like to be, but you could also be the chief of staff, legislative director. You could be a political advisor to this. You could be a foreign diplomat. Like
all those different positions.
All those things that campaign showed us, like, oh snap, that's what birthed your Donna Brazils and some Andy Pringles, some folks who will go on to mentor so many other young Black folks in this political space. So Mississippi has had a lot of that. A lot of people who have sacrificed their deeper political futures to help build the careers of a lot of younger folks who got a chance. Because again, I would say my generation is the first generation that got to go to school and study an abstract art like political science. Most folks, my parents and even folks before them, they had to go to school. They studied English, history, things like that, but would go into politics in some tangential way. Well, we kind of had the opportunity to come in and say, well, we're going to study political science as a true educational form itself, as a true area of study itself. So with that luxury and with that mentorship and tutelage, it puts us in a position to now where we can put more content in that. So the next generation, the folks behind us, can now have even more things to study and even more. We're talking about opening on Black lobbying firms. And the first Black lobbying firm I met when I got to DC, was pretty much primarily one of the top Black lobbying firms that I met while I was in DC on the Hill was a guy from Mississippi. So
Wow.
the talent rich area, there's a lot of a lot of soil, a lot of good soil down there, and so
rich soil, very
rich soil. And but the unique thing, Kay, if I might, if I could add on to that, is we're not the only ones. That's the exciting thing to me about it, that I love in this work, and getting to go and see the Britton Smiths in Cleveland, the Britton Smiths in Michigan, and the people all over the country who are doing work like this, who never get the credit, never get the kudos, because they never go further than board supervisor, or they never go further than city councilman, or they never do that, because that's not their aspiration. Their aspiration at the end of the day is mama and those. And those are the folks that are really champions and are really doing a lot of the legwork, that like I mentioned earlier, the blocking and tackling, man, the people that are the left guards and the unsexy positions, the people that never get interviewed. But so it's incumbent on us, the folks that do get interviewed, to make sure we shout out the O-line for doing all the work and for doing the things that they do to clear the way so that we can make some progress.
Kyle, can I piggyback?
Yeah, of course, man. The brother's dropping gems.
Let me say this for our, you are, brother. You're really educating me. I'm sure you're educating us. Let me say this for the community that we represent up here in the north, in the cities.
Northeast.
Yeah. I think your voice is very important, Britton, and I'm glad to hear it, because I guess in this day and age, with everything that's been going on, especially since in 2019 with George Floyd, there was some serious parallels that were brought up that really, I guess, we've been waking up over the course of years, but I think that magnified or increased the wake up. And I'm saying all that to say, there's still a level of apathy, because you're giving me courage, you're giving me inspiration, because again, going to the parallel of George Floyd and the 1960s movement with the civil rights and everything, there was an article that was, I think, written in Time, Kyle and Britton, you might have seen it, where it says they showed a picture of one, our representative, a young man running from riots, right, in the street, and that was in 1960, 62 in the riot, and then they showed a comparison picture to 2019, Ferguson, right? There was that whole Ferguson thing. So it was like, here it is, a span of like 30 plus years, and it seems like we haven't advanced. What have we been doing over these years? In 40, in 30 years, you know what I mean? Or what haven't we been doing? It's 30 plus years, and we're still back in the same kind of similar place where we were, that long. You understand what I'm saying? So when I hear you say Mississippi Ole Miss, and then I can throw out all these other movies and stuff with Sandra Bullock,
Mississippi Burning,
Blindside, and
right,
Masala, and
right.
He did a night too, right? He did a night with Mississippi too.
He did a night.
Yeah.
And you talk about the old school, the Old Boy Network and all these other things. I think I just want to highlight this. It's not necessarily a question, but I just want to put this out for context. I just want to highlight, that sounds great and all this work is being done, but how come we still not seeing, and correct me if I'm wrong and please interject, how come we're still not seeing the impact? And I want to say this. One of the things that you brought up, and I want our listening audience to get as well, when you mentioned the bringing down of the Confederate statues.
Yeah,
that right
the
there.
Flag, where the statues too.
And it's that resonated with me, because that's something that I can see. And I know the pessimism of our community will be like, okay, but was that just a symbolic gesture? Was that just something that everybody could see to keep the revolution at bay so that we don't go crazy and take over? Was that something to just keep us docile, like in slavery with Christianity, as opposed to the legislation being passed in office where they're still passing these damn bills to keep us disenfranchised and to keep us economically disenfranchised? So I just wanted to throw that out there to give you some kind of context of where we come from, yeah, that sounds great, but what is there anything that you can give that? I guess that's my question. Is there anything that you can give us that encourages us to know that, yeah, these changes that you're sharing and telling us right now, especially starting in Ole Miss, has tangibles? Is it something that we can really sink our teeth into, like the statue being pulled down? Is there anything else that you can address from your experience?
Right, inside that we don't see,
Yeah, that
that we're
we
not
don't
seeing.
see, to let us know, okay, we're not going to go through another 30 plus years
Right,
with another George Floyd. You know what I'm saying?
right.
So the answer I had to this is, I guess,
I know it's a lot.
well, it's so much that, for in short, the first part of that, the taking down the flag really had nothing to do with even appeasing Black people. It didn't have anything to, because the dynamics of it. Mississippi is what we consider a triple red state. It has a red state House, a red state Senate, and a red lieutenant governor.
Mm.
So, and it's a super majority in the House, a super majority in the Senate, and the Republican lieutenant governor and governor. That means they really don't need a Democrat to sign on to anything. And with the majority of the legislative Black caucus being Democrats, they really don't need any Democrats signing on to any bill or any pieces of legislation. It sounds nice to say, hey, we all agree that this is good, but truth be told, if they want to ram something down, they could. So with the state flag, even though we've had Democratic governors in Mississippi, we've had Democratic-led House and Senates in Mississippi, it was still never, and like I said, the only reason why I phrase it for that is because most of the Black elected officials are in the Democratic Party. If it could have been done, it probably could have been done years ago with, through the Democrats, with Blacks who served in championships and things like that. But again, the primary focus was making sure the tangible things back in the community were brought back, as opposed to the fight of something that could be very divisive and get nothing accomplished, to making sure that I can at least make sure that the teachers in my district have some resources to educate, that the local businesses have the resources they need to be successful. That first-time home buyers in Mississippi that look like us in the Mississippi Delta aren't redlined. So there were those victories that they chose to go for. But going back to this, like to the flag, the Republicans really didn't need Democratic voices for the taking down the state flag. The state flag was pretty much an economic issue for the state of Mississippi. You talk about places that had the NCAA saying, we're not gonna do no tournaments in Mississippi until y'all take down that flag. You had businesses saying, hey, we love the space and the land. We could definitely put a few plants up there, but we're not doing any business there until y'all take down that flag. So the reason why that's optimistic, why that sounds like, the Republicans didn't care about us, all they cared about was the economic issue. The appeal was Black activists, Black lawmakers, the Black politicos went to these corporations and said, hey, we are not comfortable in the conditions in where we are. So the way we took down the flag, the way we got down, wasn't the political fight at the Capitol. It wasn't putting our lawmakers in a position to where they had to argue and we risk getting those things to come back to their home districts. We had to go to the people who moved the people that were in power. We had to go to the corporations and companies that moved the people that were in power. And it was a lot of folks saying, Black athletes, I'll transfer from Mississippi State. I'll transfer from Ole Miss. I'll leave the school. Yeah, y'all was happy with the 1,200 yards I ran for last year. Watch what happens when 320 of them are on y'all, because I'm leaving.
And they've been doing it
little by little. And so now you saw this come to a point where it started to affect the bottom line. It started to affect the dollar. And so the reason why there's optimism there is the political wisdom and acumen not to take the fight and bring all your chips to the Capitol, but outside of the Capitol to the influencers that move the legislators in the Capitol.
All right, the lobbyists, yeah.
It's not just in the regular folks, what the conversation were on the podcast, what the community was feeling in the streets, just the activism, it's good to see them reach out to the direct actors to control the legislators and the folks and say, Mississippi, y'all got to fix that. And so if it worked there, that's a play that now we got that play in our playbook. Now we can come back to that and use that and tweak that and modify it and do all these other things. But there's a sign of political wisdom that we have to advance and elevate, and we're slowly coming along in that regard as well.
Indeed. Yeah, man. No, and that Britton, you tied into the next question I was going to ask, because as a community activist myself and Kaide, but I got a lot of my political training in Chicago, Mississippi, you know what I mean? So because my family, Mississippi, my family roots are in Mississippi, because it's that great migration thing, went straight up, so in regard to that, right? What are some of the things, and I think you kind of hit it on it just now, I was going to ask is, what are some of the tactics and techniques? Because just like you mentioned, corporations are ran by people. People forget that. The general masses forget that corporations are ran by people. So if they are people, hopefully they have some sense of humanity and acumen and intelligence in regards to other people, not just themselves, selfish greediness. And they could adhere to say, oh no, this is unfair, this is unjust. Not even unfair, this is unjust, right? In comparison to the laws that have been passed and how you treat other humans. But what are some of the tactics, man? Like, and I think you mentioned one already, or the main one, but what are some of the tactics that have been helpful that you've learned in this process of being on Capitol Hill, growing up in Mississippi, and just your political acumen and training?
So again, shout out to my upbringing and quite a few folks that have had influence on me. Dr. Stovall with another quotable, understanding the nature of the beast. Once you understand the nature of the beast, you can understand how to attack it. They tell you all the time that, well, if you see a deer, this is what you do. And if you see a bear, this is what you do. And you see a snake, this is what you do. And it's not the same thing. They don't tell you to do the same thing to every beast that you encounter.
True.
So once you understand the nature of the beast, you're able to maneuver and work with it. There's some animals that, hey, you come closer to them, they'll retreat. Or there's some that you make yourself big, and some that, if you stay forward and back away, then they'll back away. So it's different strategies for different creatures. So when you understand the nature of the beast, you're in a better position to attack it. And then the second one, Dr. Vaughn, Sandra Vaughn, who's another one of my professors and mentors throughout. She basically, when we learned what political science was, there was a definition she made sure we knew. David Easton's definition of political science. Politics isn't has anything to do with government, leadership, and elections. The definition of politics, according to David Easton, is who gets what and how. That's it. So politics is everywhere because it's who gets what and how. So with that, pretty much it's the knowledge aspect of it. Understanding who gets what, knowing who gets what, doing the homework and research to know who gets what, following the trails of the paper trails, following the money, following this, following that, and then understanding the nature of the beast. So when you understand the nature of the beast and you know who's getting what and how, you then can put a plan together that makes it make sense. So if I know that, like you said, these corporations are run by people. If I know that, John Johnson is the head of this and this entity and this corporation, but I also know this about John Johnson. He was a former athlete or a former this, that. All right, well, maybe I should use some influencers who are athletes to come approach this. And now my movement is not only led by the politicals and the Britton Smith, but we've had to use our social capital to bring in someone who John Johnson is going to listen to. Now we bring in a superstar, an NBA player, a LeBron James, or whomever that moves John Johnson. Or if I learned that, this guy is a former military guy, well, we look at bringing in one of our generals, one of our Black generals. We bring in one of our Black elected officials, one of our former defensemen, a top Black defense contract. Understanding the nature of the beast and who's connecting to who and who's getting what and how, and we can put that plan together and utilizing those things that we're not even just expending all of our political capital inside on the legislative floor. We're handling things on the outside, changing the culture of the conversation. And now once the culture of the conversation changes, then it makes the work that the legislators and the lawmakers are doing, it puts them right in the space where they need to get the best possible results.
That's awesome. That's like, I'm sorry, Kyle. Can I interject on this real quick? That's just like parents expecting teachers to be parents, as opposed to allowing them to do their job and teach. And as a parent, you do your job and you raise your child. I like how you phrased that. Yeah, Cal, I'm sorry. I just wanted.
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, your brother, answered it, definitely on point, because these are the things that people talk about politics as far as just government officials and legislation and law. But no, politics is everything. That's when we learn about political education. Politics is everything. It's everything. Everything you do is political because everything is connected to your culture, and things that connect to culture connected to the people. You know what I'm saying? So people try to separate those things. Like, nah, your politics is from your culture, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So it'd be Mississippi, DC, Chicago, LA, Miami, down south, up north, northeast, west coast. Your politics is how you move.
Kyle, didn't you say politics is also tied to the land?
Yeah, it definitely politics tied to the land, because we talk about resources and getting what you need. What we need is from the land. You know what I'm saying? Like that is just a basic, natural, indigenous, knowing, right? Hence, again, I think, Britton, again, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think our brothers and sisters in Mississippi, in the Alabamas, in the Arkansas, I think fundamentally they know that.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to go to Wharton School of Business to know that that's the most appreciated commodity. Because they ain't making no more. They ain't making no more new land. No. Like it's already out there. They're gonna make 100 more Bentleys, 100 more Phantoms. They're gonna make 100 more, 100,000 more private jets. They're gonna make mansions all over the place. They ain't making no more new land like that. So that commodity, as we own, and that's another thing I always preach to our community, that has so much political capital, because that is such a valuable resource and asset in our community. And that's why the fight for and we talk about what were some of the things that we're working on that were some of the bigger wins. I have to give kudos to my fraternity brother, Congressman Benny Thompson, and the work he and so many legislators across the Mississippi Delta, Arkansas Delta, Louisiana, Tennessee, a lot of that, even throughout the Ohio Valley, but primarily those guys leading in that Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas area in the fight for Black farmers, the Black farmers and Black land ownership. Of course, after enslavement, you go to sharecropping, and we still talking about land that we don't own yet rightfully ours. And so now all these processes here to circumvent that and to kind of correct a lot of those wrongs. A lot of great work was done in ensuring that some of this land went to the rightful families, to the rightful owners of this stuff. So I think that's that resource right there, and advocating for not just the financial restitution, but the land restitution is equally important, because again, you can give me my money that's owed, but if you keep my land, I have no opportunity to reinvest, to kind of go back out and replicate means of income. So now actually being able to own those means is vital and important to our community.
Yo, Britton is putting up too much information here, Kyle. So come on, man. We gotta hit you with something. We gotta get more out, man. We gotta get more information. So come on, let's do this. you have a keen insight. I love the way you brought up strategy, right? You don't deal with a bear the same way you deal with a snake, the same way you deal with a tiger. I like that analogy. Fantastic. So how can we generate more people like you, more people like us? And I'm tying it into the question here: what is the importance of HBCU socially and politically to the empowerment of the Black community? Right.
Indeed.
So what is your
Especially with our youth, our children, our young adults, like
exposure. I working at Reform Alliance, and working in the criminal justice space, work with a lot of folks who are looking for a second chance in life and looking to, make a positive impact after some of the things that, after some indiscretions that may have happened in their lives or whatever. And I always note the reason why I do this job with pride and do anything I do with pride, working with our community, is I never felt that I was better than anyone. Never. I totally understood that I am a product of my community and a product of so many people that made investments and so many people that offered exposure. I was exposed to some things that some of my peers weren't. So I totally believe that if some of my peers got exposed to some of the things I saw, maybe we could have different outcomes. So the fact that I was exposed to so many things let me know at a very young age, there's way more out there than the corner of 151st and Melville. Like I know that it is because I've seen it. I know that the exposure changed my life. I never forget, I was in the 6th grade and my mother, who was a community organizer, and she's the daughter of another community organizer, my grandfather. It was I couldn't run from it if I wanted to.
Right.
My mother made an executive decision. She asked me one day, she said, I was in the 6th grade. She said, do you want to go page in the state legislature? Page in the state legislature? What's that? I never heard of that. She said, well, you go down to the state capitol and work for a legislator for a day. You run errands and things like that. Nah, I don't feel like I want to do all that. You get to miss a day of school. Yeah, well, I could time out and go ahead and go down. I got down there, put on a suit, went down to the Capitol, and sat there. And as they were going, I heard them say, all right, next agenda on the item, infrastructure. Talked about it for X number of minutes. All right, next, education. Talked about it for a number of minutes. All right, next, we'll talk about forestry. And then they kept bringing up all these issues. I was like, do they talk about everything here? And somebody said, yeah, all the issues and all the money that gets allocated all comes through this building. Do the people out there know that? Like that everything they need, they can come to this building and tell these people that they can get. And that moment right there clicked. 6th grade, because I was exposed to where the resources are coming from. And so I had to deal with the problem. I jokingly would always tell this story. I used to do my summer internships while at Rust in DC. So I would work on Capitol Hill for a member of Congress who I was connected with through some other programming I was exposed to through the Mississippi Boys State program. And so I was connected to some legislators, and I literally, there are kids all across the country, Black, white, write their applications 6 months in advance just to intern for 6 weeks. I walked on Capitol Hill with my cousin, went to this office just to say, I want to pop my head in. Somebody on the phone heard that it was me coming through the door and offered me an internship. I didn't fill out no application. I didn't do none of this. All because of these exposures and connections. And so I used to do my internships on the Hill. And I remember telling kids back in Mississippi and friends and peers, even classmates, that I was doing internships in DC. And they were, man, you were in DC? That's amazing. How you do that? I went to Memphis Airport and got on the plane. Like, they got another one at 4:15 if you got that action. Like, I didn't do anything. And I try to reiterate, I'm not doing anything special. I'm doing me when I get these opportunities. So the same thing that I'm doing, I want you to know that you can do it too. Like there's another seat. I wasn't the only seat on that plane. You know what I mean? There's seats next to me. And if you don't like the office that I was working in, it's other offices up there. And if you don't like Capitol Hill, you can go to the bureaus. You can go to the State Department, USDA, whatever you're interested in. There's so many opportunities and exposures. And so I would say literally exposing people and understanding we didn't have the resources to do a lot of these programming. I have to say that. My mother, not only was she an organizer, but she taught me how to fundraise. And this is way before GoFundMe's and all that stuff. There was a program I had the opportunity to come to participate in, and I said, Mama, look, I get to go to DC for the summer and New York, and it's the presidential classroom and this global young leaders and this, that, and the third, and oh, it cost $5,000. Never mind. Mm-hmm. And I knew we didn't have that. And I knew my mama said, you ain't said nothing, don't worry. So she literally made me sit down and put pen to paper and write letters requesting funds from local businesses, community leaders, different groups. And at the end, it wasn't going to be one-sided. At the end, I was writing and post my return from the trip. If I'm so fortunate to go, I'll come back and talk to others about how they can sign up and go to the trip. And I'll give you a debrief of what I learned from the trip. My mother taught me that not only in this transaction are you going to request, but you're going to give. So you're going to give of the resource back to yourself of their investment. So you got to return their investment. And so that has to be demonstrated in this handwritten letter that you're writing, whether I was asking the local person or this community person for $25 or this local business for $250. And by the end of doing all of that, because of my mother's work, my grandfather's good name, my mother's working good name, the effort that I was putting into this, I had money not only for the event, I had the money that I needed to take the plane trip. Like I had the travel budget. And when I said, all right, we've reached our goal, thank you for that. No. Take a little extra because you're gonna need some pocket money, baby. And then being able to come back and then the next year taking my friend Catherine, on the trip to make sure she said, I want to go too. She came down to the house. My mother taught her to put pen to paper, and so it was.
Come on now.
These exposures, this type of understanding of how to build community, how to build opportunities, and how to build exposures that my mother Tina Smith just did an outstanding job with. And I think that's one of the things that set me apart and put me on a path to really understand the value at our HBCUs, that these are rich resources that, man, if somebody come, that whole, man, it's a brother, man, dude, I went to school with way better than Jordan. It's all those stories. Well, I'm going to make sure I bring a camera to that place so you can see how good these people are. So you can see that my peers have that. And I was proud to be a part of the, I was one of the first ever students from my HBCU to ever receive certain fellowships, certain scholarships. And what that let the State Department know, what that let the different places that gave me these fellowships and scholarships was, hey man, maybe we should look some other places. We always talk about going down to Mississippi, but we go to Ole Miss or we go to this place.
Right.
That kid from Rust, maybe there's somebody else like him there. And then now there are more recruiters and there are more places and more people going down and flooding those areas.
Woo! Yo, look, I'm hyped right now. Like you don't understand. Yo, hey, family. If you didn't believe me, believe this brother right here. HBCUs is where it's at. No, first of all, shout out and respect and love to your mom, man.
Absolutely. HBCU.
Much respect to you and love to your mom. That is what I'm talking about, fam. Legacy. Legacy. She was able to learn because she learned and she shared it with her children. Britton. That's what I'm talking about, community. Hold on, I just gotta say this, man. For the family, what he just exemplified is a fundamental African principle of what we call Ubuntu. Because I am, we are. And because we are, I am. Right? All he said was, look, I'm doing this not just for me, but for the people around me and coming after me. This is not a self-grandizing gesture. I'm not just doing this because I want to look good and it's all about me. It's about me in the sense of I want to take this opportunity to create more opportunities for people that I consider and care about.
Absolutely.
And HBCUs, as you said, Britton, is a hotbed for that mentality, the way we move. It's not something that we typically have to learn. It's already there. And man, I'm feeling the love, man, because I'm so glad how you broke it down for the people, because people got to truly understand that's what I came from.
Right.
I came from that mentality. My family is about that. My community that I came from, I grew up down south mostly, and even in Chicago, we come from that. We come from that. We just got to get back to it.
Yeah, you know what? And the pride of it.
Yes,
the pride of it.
Yes.
You know, like I said, I went to, you know, for all intents and purposes, with it being a historically Black boarding school, I went to a historically Black high school. Like, you know, I went to a place. We lived on campus. We lived on campus. We had this kids from diverse areas. So when I got to Rust, when I got to college, this was I looked at it like it looked at, I felt like as a rookie, I was already in the pros for 3 years. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I've already had the experience. I know how to be independent and manage my study habits, yet manage my social life. I have some version of experience of this because I was exposed, because I was shown that there were other opportunities. And you come in with that institutional knowledge, understanding that nature of the beast, understanding that. And then I think one of the biggest principles of understanding nature of the beast is understanding who you are.
Yeah,
understanding
that's the key.
Being connected. And I think my mother taking that time with my grandfather, two of my biggest influences, taking the time to really impart things into me, but not just that, just show me more of who I am, put me in situations and experiences for me to learn who I am. So I did a lot of things that were unconventional, not because we had so much money or resources, but we knew how to access where the resources were. So huge skill. And so it wasn't that I was a rich kid or anything like that. It's just I knew how to make sure if I asked you for $25, I knew that you knew that you were going to get a return on investment.
Yes,
and that you knew that, and I knew that, hey, if I needed another 25, there would be a chance for you to help me or something like that. And so I had a lot of opportunities to really understand who I was, what made me a leader, you know, because I would never think that, you know, I'm not the leader. I'm not the guy that's supposed to be in the front. I'm happy, you know, being one of the guys singing the chorus. I'm not the lead. Like, you know, he's David Ruffin. We the Temptations. You know, I have no problem. I have no problem playing my role. But I was put in predicaments and situations to where somebody got to lead, but you got the most skill set. And so then I had to realize that I had to understand, hey man, it's some stuff in here. I guess I am. I guess I have to do some of these things. And I was put in certain predicaments and situations to pull certain qualities out of me and hone certain qualities, you know, whether it was, and don't overlook them. As it may sound like all I've done was some of the high points and state capital things, but even being president of the church usher board, you know what I mean? Like being a part, being responsible for something, being in charge, being the teaching Sunday school class, or whether it's being the one who's in charge of this extracurricular activity at school, no matter how big or how small. You know, of course, like I said, going back to my roots of the church, you know, we never leave. We never left our youth choir rehearsal or our usher board practice without saying, you know, if a task is once begun, never leave it till it's done. Be it great or be it small, do it well or not at all. You know, so it was that, even that simple principle, just that little rhyme means so much, because of course, if there's anything I'm gonna do, I approach working, and to this day, I was still working with the youth at my church. I approach that with the same zeal and passion that I do my 9 to 5, that I do any of my other work.
Right, so. Yo,
we can say. Yeah, like that.
All right, listen.
I'll mess with you. Yeah.
We at the top of the hour, Britt.
All right,
Would you please do us the honor by staying on for like, we need 30 more minutes.
Yeah, bro. Yeah,
I
bro.
can't even do the 15, Kyle. We need 30.
Yeah, no, we do need 30. We need 30 for this.
30.
We need 30 for this because he's on. No, bro. You just hitting on the principles, bro. You again, community. I'm big on community. Both Kadi and I a bit. Listen, people sleep on South, man. People sleep on the down South, man. On the dirty South, as we used to call it in hip hop.
South got something to say.
South got something to say.
Shout out to 3 Stacks, man. South
yes, respect your origin. You know what I'm saying? Like, because we're connected, man. And that's just say community. But Kadi, I'm sorry, but family, please like, share, subscribe. Right, and like Britton said, donate because we know what to do with the money.
Absolutely,
we go use it to the best of our ability, and we gonna give you feedback on it. It's not gonna go into some atmosphere like some other folks, you know.
Return on investment.
Absolutely.
In return, yeah. Kyle, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but no, like, share, subscribe, family. You know, definitely with the Cash App down below. Please donate. You know, please share if you don't have money to donate because we want to get the message out, get the knowledge out, and like my brother Britt said, get the exposure out. You know what I'm saying? So I know.
Come on, man. Just run through these questions, man. We got get all this from the brother.
So we gotta put out the the short, shameless plug. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
So Britt, real quick. I'm gonna run through these questions, man, because man, we could be here for 3 hours. Incarceration rates declining, right? Kyle, elaborate on that question for me, brother, please.
Sure. So brother Britton, like I said, you work with Reform Alliance, which is dealing with our incarceration of our men and women in our community. You know, working on Meek Mills, of course, huge figure. You know, hip hop, Jay-Z, some other folks behind the scene, Robert Kraft,
Robert Smith,
the billionaire Robert Smith, you know. So in reference to the incarceration rates, because that's still an issue in our communities, whether it be New York, down south, whatever, it's still a huge issue because we got the prison pipeline. As an educator, I even saw a meme the other day where they said, look at the school and then look at the prison. They're creating prison like schools. Right, the structure and even how they socialize the youth for certain things in the classroom and moving how they move and how the structure of the building looks compared to a prison, right? But aside from that, what are some things that Reform Alliance is doing and that you've noticed that is helping to decrease the incarceration rate of our men and our women, man?
So, and big shout out to, like I said, the those names you mentioned who came together to form Reform Alliance.
Yeah.
Our role in our space is community supervision, which is probation and parole reform. Now there's so many and there's so many groups working in the criminal justice space that have done fantastic work locally, nationally, and it's an honor to work in this space, to do this good work, necessary work to combat mass incarceration as an issue. Because the sad thing is, no matter if you're in New York, Mississippi, Alabama, California, Oklahoma, you know someone who's been impacted by the system.
Yes.
And so what we do is we focus primarily on probation and parole reform through state legislation. And, now we're even looking at ways we can do some things to curb federal supervision rates. Because there are so many people, there are 4.5 million people on probation and parole alone. Like just systems of back, just that, just pay. We're not talking about people that are all locked up or anything like that. People, and the reason why that's so important is there are what we call technical violations and different violations that we hear about with probation and parole that could get people sent back to prison or get their sentences extended.
Wow. And just real quick, I want to interject, Britton. Like that's almost the size of like the population in California, because in California is 5 million, 4.5. So that's like almost like 2 Chicago.
That's states.
Yeah, that's a state. That's a state
of people. Yeah. And and the crazy thing is, twice as many people were sent back to federal prison for technical violations than for any new crime. So these are people, and when we say technical violations, we're talking about those violations such as, curfews or any times where crossing county lines or associating with other known felons, and that as it was written, which is the sad reality, because we've seen situations where a guy's sentence would be up, but he can't go home because his brother lives at home with the mom, and the brother has also had a conviction.
Yes, I was gonna say, that's what I was thinking.
So the sad reality is he can't even leave because he has no other place to go. And in a state like Mississippi and some other states where there's no transitional housing, there's no place for them to go. So dude is like, you know, so you mean to tell me my sentence has been up and I still got to be here? Because you have no place to go. And so there's fighting some of these things that are literally keeping us bound into some of these technical violations where, you know, real life situations. Grandma's sick and people want to go to the hospital to see grandma, possibly for the last time, but you can't because grandma is in Johnson County, and because of your supervision, you can't leave Smith County. So it's, I can't see my loved one before, and little nuances like that. Seeing situations where it's been people who, you know, they co-parent, and while one of the persons was incarcerated, the parent got a new job and having to make means for their child, move to a different county. Now the parent gets out and they can't come back. I mean, they can't go to the child's recital or the awards program at the school because they can't leave this jurisdiction. And, you know, making these laws make sense.
Right.
You know what I mean? Stop there, as opposed to them being designed for, like any industry, returning customers, as opposed to making this set up to make sure that they have a system of returning customers, making sure that there are people that are actually set up for success. And when we say set up for success, it's more than just, do you have a place to stay? Can you get a job? And can you stay out of trouble? That's not necessarily the path for success, because truth be told, you and I need more than that as we plan our lives without criminal convictions. You know, we talk about wealth building. We talk about opportunities to really make use and value of resources. So for instance, if you and I talk about, you know, make sure you get a job and make sure you have a 401k and understand the difference between a Roth IRA versus and so we're if that's necessary for people without convictions, what do you think people with who have been systems impacted need for success? You know, they definitely need people to help them. Hey, look, man, this is what a checking account does. This is what a money market account does. This is the difference. This is why you can have this, why you need the savings here. What they need, all those principles as well. It can't just be, do you have a job? You staying out of trouble? You know what I mean? It has to be more than that, setting people up for success. Just because these numbers are what they are. And so to date, with Reform Alliance, we've worked in numerous states to try to get people earned time credits and caps on these probations, because people don't need to be while you're on probation. What people don't understand is you're living with the threat of being sent back to prison every day. It's one violation could one misunderstanding. It's situations where you can't have contact with law enforcement. Sounds like, well, they should. You cannot have contact with law enforcement, which means you're staying out of, which quote unquote should mean you're staying out of trouble. Well, on the surface, that sounds like
does contact with law enforcement include stop and frisk?
Keep going. I'm gonna take it even further than this. Further than that. You hit my car. You drive off. I can't call law enforcement because I'm on probation.
Dang.
I could get violated if the police have to write up a report about it.
If they hit your car,
I could get sent back to prison because my car got hit and the police did a report on it
Wow.
because I've had contact with law enforcement.
Wow.
So it's things that the system, because when we write it in black and white, and you got to remember, a lot of these laws stem from the time and the era where it was always, we got to be tough on crime. We got to be tough on crime. We got to be tough on crime. We're trying to live into a world and move into a world where we got to be smart on crime. It's not safe to have overrun prison systems. Because what we saw during the pandemic is all these prisons became incubators.
Yeah.
They just was cooking up the disease. And the difference is, the people who were really getting affected, these small towns, because of course, prisons aren't in downtown metropolitan areas. So the people who were are very much affected were the correction officers and the facility people who work there, come in and leave and take whatever communicable diseases back to the grocery stores in the little town, to the Family Dollar, to the Walmart, to the body shop, to the barber shop. And now these little bitty towns are infected at a higher rate because you have 4 people in a 2-person cell. And you're not practicing any of the safe policies necessary to keep people safe from these different various diseases. So again, there are a lot of layered problems.
Yes.
Simply, that's why our work of taking all these people who live with the threat of being thrown back in prison every day, minimizing that. And so to date, in just our 3 years of existence, we've passed 16 bills in 10 different states. And we have impacted, of that 4.5 million, we've impacted so far in our 3 years of existence, about 650,000 individuals who are on community supervision in those 16 pieces of legislation in those 10 different states. So looking to do much more and greater work, absolutely. So
we got less than that, 15 minutes. We gotta ask these questions, Kyle. We gotta get these questions out. Was BLM, Black Lives Matter, effective in your fight against the predatory system?
So what people, typically there's the inside game, the outside game, and I've always been a huge fan of a lot of our leaders who have even said, going back to your Frederick Douglass, you agitate, continue to throw rocks at the gate. There's somebody who's, and we all serve a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my good friends over there with Until Freedom and with Tamika Mallory and Stephen Green and my son and Angelo and all those those folks are great and have such a natural zeal of working with community and working with folks. And I've had the pleasure of working both with Reform and outside of Reform with, Carmen Perez and so many influential people who are in the streets and impacted so many folks. That makes the job of being inside the Capitol and outside the Capitol work, because what helps is when we're inside the Capitol, we're saying, hey man, open that window. See them people out there throwing rocks at the gate? Call them and tell them, chill out. All you got to do is make sure you do what you say you're going to do on this.
Yeah.
And if and so when you ask, was it effective? Absolutely. Absolutely. It gave a feather in the cap to a lot of folks to be able to try to get some of this legislation passed and changed. Now, within the communities, of course, we always talk about, some folks are all or nothing. Some folks are incremental, and we'll go back and forth about which strategy works the best. I'm a firm believer in, and I'm more along the incrementalism side, where
baby steps.
You build, you reach here, then you reach here, then you reach here, or get some first downs, then you get enough first downs, you'll be close enough to the goal to take a good shot. But some folks are no. We look at the scoreboard, man. We ain't got time for that. We need to score now.
Right.
We need a game breaking play.
Yeah.
And so, but again, at the end of the day, the thing I like about a lot of the folks that we've been connected to, especially on the grassroots level, is their commitment to mama and those. And you know, that's a big principle for me. So I'm all for that. I'm all for making sure we connect to mama and those. So it had it definitely had a role, definitely had a positive impact. And although, like I said, you saw some divisive politics and tactics to kind of divide people on languages and nuances of defund the police and things like that. And so there's definitely space for the street activism in the grand scheme of political movement in progress.
Absolutely. And I would love to delve into it more. We'll be on this call. We'll
Yeah,
be on
yeah.
this thing for 3
I'm
hours.
gonna ask this one. I'm gonna ask this one
Okay.
because in reference of when we talk about like reform, you know, based off of what Meek Mill experienced, you know, hip hop, rap, you know, we all from that generation of influence of that musical, that cultural, you know, impact, right? So I know some people may say, well, you know, he's a thug, or you know, rap promotes, you know, this violence that you're trying to rectify. What do you say for those folks who are in that mindset of saying hip hop perpetuates a lot of the things that you are looking to eradicate and to reform, that the same people that you're trying to reform are the same people perpetuating this type of behavior, actions, etc.
So to that end, about, like you said, coming from that era and generation, obviously, you know, I'm a huge fan of Jay, Nas, and you know, guys who tell stories. And the thing with telling stories is these were real stories. So if you don't want me to tell my real story, change my experience. Help me change that story then. I won't tell you about the gloom and doom that I had to do to see the light if you stop giving me all this gloom and doom. Like if you provide some resources to if I had to rap about my true experience, I'd be rapping about how education and HBCUs and the Black experience and the cultural experience and giving back. Why? Because that was my experience. So I have a positive experience to give. Now, did I see a lot of those things? Absolutely. But nonetheless, what I experienced, I would have a positive rapping impact. So if you don't want people to have this negative rapping impact, if you don't want a bad Yelp review, make sure the customer has a good experience. So to the people who complain about, well, all they're doing is perpetuating stuff, they're just telling you what their experience was at your establishment, sir. So make sure they have a better experience. They won't leave such a nasty Yelp review.
Right. The situation is worse than the person who's telling about the situation.
Absolutely.
Right. Because it perpetuates that type of behavior in that person to be able to have to express that.
Well, even more so than that, the sad reality is it's a reflection on how you're doing. It's a reflection on it's literally a mandate on, this is what you've given me, owner of the means of production, and this is what you've given and put in place, person who is running the system. So if you don't like people complaining about your system, fix your system.
I got questions, man. We don't got time, man.
Go ahead, bro.
This is the last one. This is offshore.
One of the last ones. I got one more.
Okay, so this is one of the last questions. I'm not gonna go any further. But I'm to that point. I feel it's important that we give our community Britton's answer or response, perceptions on this. Bottom line, do you really think the system really cares? You know what I mean? I think it's a what do you call it? It's a red herring, right? So you have certain people, left wing people, liberals, whatever the case would be, posing that argument. You know, rap, hip hop produces violence, and is this, all that other crap. When in reality, the system that's perpetuated or reinforced by those higher up are benefiting from that system. So why are they going to want to dismantle something or invest in something that's going to change or affect their economic status within? You understand what I'm saying? So I think it's a red herring that we have the right and the left, Republicans against Democrats, the rights against the left, what have you, because at this level, that's exactly what they want, to keep us divided so that the higher up can keep this system that's profiting them, keep it that way. And they really, really don't care. It's just a political game. What are your thoughts on that?
Mhm.
So the system never, to your point, the first question as you asked it was, does the system care? The system is not does not take into account the individual. So by design, it does not take into account the individual. Another reference, we talk about Bill Belichick, and Greg Popovich and those guys who always say, next man up, next man up. It's their systems. I don't care who. We saw when Tom Brady got hurt.
Good analogy, yeah.
Matt Castle came in and won 11 games. Tom Brady gets hurt. Jimmy G comes in and wins all these games. It's the system. You argue, is it the players, the system? Doesn't take away from the greatness of Tom Brady. But again, we're talking about, it was a system that still shows it can be effective no matter who's involved. And so when we look at this constitutionality of and the framework of the country, it didn't even take into account Black people. Like, it didn't take into account. It wasn't not even just the success or the personhood. We didn't have personhood then. And so even more than that, it didn't even care for the casual white male. Didn't care for white women, didn't even care for the casual white male. Because again, remember, the only people who had the right to vote, not were white men, were property owning white men.
Yes, indeed.
So you had to have some stake in the game. Yep. You had to have some value to the system in order to comment on the system. So the system was never designed to account for the people that it represents. It was never designed to literally take input from the people it represents. So now, as we start to reform this representative democracy, now we have to say, okay, the framework of the system, which does not take into account the person, how do we make that work for us? How do we make that work? And so with the advent of social media, to your point, for years, the people and the people who have had ulterior motives within our government, within our systems, within our capitalist system, have been able to hide. A lot of information hasn't been known and a lot of information hasn't been shared. But the more we get to understand who gets what and how, and the nature of those beasts, we can be able to leverage those resources to bring them back to mom and nose. And so it's really one of those situations where, same way we were able to control the narrative around that flag in Mississippi, now maximize that on another level for the capitalistic system. The more we put our resources together and pool our resources to make sure our institutions are producing more Robert Smiths, and hear how Robert Smith, and because one thing about Robert, and shout out to Student Freedom Initiative, they're happy to get a game away. They are happy to get a game away. Tell you, this is what venture capitalism looks like. This is what Black banking looks like. This is what this is where the resources are. And so the more we connect with them, the more we connect with those institutions, I believe, because this concept is not as fresh and easy to jump into, and is not as palatable as a lot of the shows that come on television, and
it's not as sexy.
It's not as sexy.
No, it's not. I can't floss that in my Instagram.
I can't. So, it's gonna take it. That's why I believe the strategy more is a dink and dunk first down to get more and more people exposed and more people talking about it, and getting the right more and more people talking about it. Then we can move into a place where, capitalism, it's a system that has taken over 400 years to get to the point where it is now.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have this one shot yet. We don't have the one shot yet, right. Because of course there's always the phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it did burn down in the night. So
yes, it did.
So again, until until we find that match that takes the system and tweaks it. There are a lot of good things that have yielded for our community, but we have to maximize that and can't be complacent in a lot of those things, and rest in what we've gotten, because we're owed a lot more.
Very good. Very good.
And I have a true belief, Britton, that it took 400 years for capitalism to reach this point of influence and control, but it would definitely take less than 400 years to tear it down and create a new.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely will. I don't think people really understand it, like you said, with the Rome analogy, and good analogy on the sports too, because the systems are what control us. So we're gonna have to create another system to override that system. And I think that's what people don't fully understand. It's not gonna be individual, as you know, with the organizations are what change things, y'all. Myself, Kaide, we are individuals. We're here in our collective, but we know the collective is also connected to organizations. If you're not a part of some type of organization, get with one immediately. Because you think the people we admire, the Fannie Lou's, the Ella Bakers, the Malcolms, the Medgars, like you said, the who else? Oh man, so many Andrew Youngs, they all part of organizations.
Yep.
Malcolm was a part of organization. Dr. King, organization. Fannie Lou, organization. Stokely Carmichael, organization. Like you can't escape it. That's how it works.
That's where mentorship and training is, in organization. Again, there are a lot of people who, and a lot of times people often take this as a slight or knock towards them. Yes, you can be born with a lot of elite, innate talents, capabilities, the ability to communicate, the ability to effect change with your natural given skill set. However, you get some good coaching with that, some good mentorship, some good people who can put you in a different place and a different level. It makes what you have all the more influential, all the more impactful. Like I said, it's like someone having a raw talent. You see folks who could just and I played college baseball and I played sports all through my life. There were some folks, man, since birth, I don't know what it is. You never had to teach them this or this. They just could hit the ball. They could just flat out hit the ball. And the sad reality was, I have so many stories of some peers and colleagues. If they'd have just had some good coaching, if they'd have just had somebody to mentor them and stick with that, I'd be sitting here, hey guys, I do have to run out because I got to go throw out the first pitch of my homeboy's game. You know what I mean? I'd be having a lot more of those stories. But again, the same way within the movement, there are people who have some innate skills and are great community leaders. But if they get with some organizations that will mentor them, that will harness and help hone their skills and really put them in platforms to be that greatness, cultivate.
Yeah, Cal.
Indeed. So, brother, we definitely appreciate your time with us. So, I want to ask these last few questions because we regard your time and we appreciate you, man, dropping these jewels with us today, brother. It's been very uplifting, very powerful, impactful, indeed. And again, you're not just talking service, doing lip service. You're doing the work. So you're just giving us more insight on what you and your organizations have been doing. So, two questions. One is how can we, as adults and even the youth, be a part of the solutions instead of the problems? What's some kind of just like Kadi's always said, that what are the tangible steps and solutions that we can do starting today to start that process? And then the second question is coming right after that is, how do you rise up to your occasion? What is one thing that you do in your grand rising to rise up to the occasion of excellence?
So first thing is, I would say, to the point where you say get with the organization, to all your listeners, they can text the word reform to 81411 or go to reformalliance.com and sign up to become a reformer, where we're trying to help build that community of folks who are passionate about, you know, the work we're doing in the criminal justice space, especially all the different states we're moving around in, where we're looking for advocates. So again, texting the word reform to 81411 or going to reformalliance.com, following us at Reform on all social platforms. But in addition to that, getting with these communities and understanding these different issues. Now, again, an issue that I saw affect my community was criminal justice reform and how many people I knew growing up were systems impacted, which is why the work that I'm doing fits what I'm doing. But now, in addition to that, if there's some issues, whether you're in focusing on education, whether you're focusing on um, uh, farming and agriculture, whether you're focusing on real estate, whether you're focused on, find and understand those issues and find people to talk in community about those issues. Again, the collective mindset, the collective conversation. Not only find people that you look up to in that space, who can mentor you in that space, find people you disagree with in that space. So that you can share ideas and that you can talk about and find, because once you start finding the similarities with people on your side who both see that there's a problem, but have two different routes to fix it, you're starting to make headway in a whole nother space. You know, you're starting to make gains that neither one of you could have ever realized. So again, help make your own approach more robust by finding people that you agree with in principle but disagree with in philosophy. So getting connected, that would be my overarching message to that. Get connected with people and institutions that are connected to your passion. And to the last point about, you know, how do I rise to the occasion? I think about what it took to get me here. And that I realize, and I always consider myself, because I don't consider myself the beginning or the end. I know that I have responsibility as high as I've ever gotten to send the elevator back down. I always see myself as the second or third leg in the relay. That I have a responsibility to get the baton. I have a responsibility to run as fast as I can with the baton. And I have a responsibility to make sure the person I hand the baton off to is set in the best position that they need to go. So again, I see myself as a considering, you know, always considering myself as a middle leg in the relay. Really helps motivate me to know that the people behind me depend on what I'm doing, and the people in front of me depend on what I'm doing. So I got to do it.
On point.
Britton, thank you so much. We are approximately 8 to 9 minutes past the 30-minute mark that you agreed to. We appreciate you. Final words, brother. We're gonna give our final words. Where can people find you? What's your social media handles?
Yes,
and if you have any last words you want to say, this is the time to do it, brother. And then Kyle will finish it off with our final words, and then we'll end it with a 3, 2, 1.
At Britton Smith 1911, Britton, SMITH 1911. Again, I am again heavily connected to, and I will see all that you do if you tag and post that at Reform. And don't forget 81411. Text the word reform to 81411. Help join this movement and this fight for so many people that look like us in this space. Because again, like I said, there are some real sad realities, and I just want to leave a couple of other stats that the federal supervision release system has grown almost 300% in the past 25 years and cost taxpayers more than $500 million. So again, and also, almost 90% of the people that were sent to federal prison in non-immigration cases are also sentenced to supervised release, which is an average about 4 years. So I had to give those glooming stats just to show how robust and round that this is in our community. So it's not just hey man, they're locking Black folks up. In addition to locking Black folks up, they're really chipping away at the economic infrastructure of Black folks, and the economic infrastructure of people, even under supervision. So again, I thank you all for the platform, and I want to continue to support you all. So not only with my time, but of course, I definitely want to make sure that I'll definitely be a part of that donation link to the Cash App, because I know how far that'll go towards the movement. So I encourage all the listeners and the folks who pay attention to me for whatever reasons, do the same. That supporting you not only with our action, with our deeds, but with our dollars.
Appreciate you, Britton. Thank you so much. Final words. I learned a lot, bro. I wish we had more time to actually talk. One of the things that stood out to me was when you said a lot. But one of the things that oh man, where I pick, I don't know where to start from, Calvin. I'm trying to looking at my notes. And I'm like, yo, just I like the way that you said in terms of I would say put it in my own words, in doing our part. You know what I mean? And just you said your motivation was those behind you depend on you, and you have a moral obligation to make sure you leave the person in front of you with the best advantage and the best head start. There's so much that you said, but I'm just going to pick up on that because we don't have, closing in on time. With me in my role as a youth development specialist, my job is I have a lot of the younger generation depending on me, but my generation to create a better future for them, right? So by me going out and sharing my experience with those who are coming from behind me, you mentioned this as well. We're creating that pathway for them. We're creating, like your mother did for you, and helping you put the pen to paper and help find those fundings to expose you.
Yep.
Like you said, expose this so much, Carlos. I'm trying to keep it brief, but the exposure, that's what I'm trying to give to the young people as well, and put them in a better position so that way when I'm not here, they can do is like pay it forward. They can do the same for those who are behind them, making this world a better place. And Kyle talks about that at length. All right, that's it, man. That's it. Because it's a lot, man. So I gotta hone it in. I'm gonna land my plane like what our other guests. I'm gonna land my plane there. I'm gonna land.
Indeed, family. No, thank you all for the experience of sharing your time with us. The brother, Britton Smith is doing great work behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, along with other men and women who are really about sharing the knowledge, doing the work, and making our society literally a better place through reform and getting our brothers and sisters out of the penal system, because a lot of our brothers and sisters have been unjustly accused and been harmed and been killed and been just had a negative stigma on their families, their being by being incarcerated. And I've definitely been personally impacted by that. I have not been incarcerated, but I have family and friends who've been incarcerated. So it definitely has had a profound impact on me and how I view things. So I appreciate the work, brother. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Been very, 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 worthwhile. You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate you all.
Indeed, bro.
Thank you.
Indeed, man.
So, okay, Kyle, you have anything else?
Yeah, so I want to say again, like, share, subscribe, family. Grand Rise Collective podcast. We have more guests on, like brother here, Britton. And again, if you have any ideas for any guests, please, get at us, grandrisecollective@gmail.com. Also, YouTube, subscribe, click that bell as well, right? LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, even on Twitter a little bit, you know what I'm saying? So we all over. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse, right?
Awesome.
So we appreciate you.
Peace.